I thought he would feel safer, that nobody was going to get him or anything if we'd rent a car and drive home. And that's what we did.
In November 2015, the Shermans were traveling home on a highway south of Atlanta, Georgia. Chase Sherman, their son, was not his normal self. He was acting paranoid and delusional.
How was he in the car?
He tried to jump out of the car.
He decided he wanted to get up and get out of the car, and we don't know really why. I one time told Marianne to call 911. I need some help because I can't keep him in this car. He didn't know who we were.
Chase had allegedly taken synthetic marijuana days earlier, but his parents say they still don't fully understand what was going on in his mind.
We were hoping for them to get there and get him to the hospital. That's what I told him, that he was having a psychotic episode.
One deputy handcuffed Chase Sherman in the back seat.
There was another officer on the driver's side. That officer shot his taser right through the door. You could hear the tasing going off.
The taser has rapidly become a popular weapon for police. It's used by more than 17,000 law enforcement agencies in the U.S. It's meant to immobilize a person by sending shocks of electricity through projectile darts, or cause pain by directly stunning a person's body. These deputies used both methods on Chase Sherman multiple times.
My boy told him he quit. I quit. And they kept right on going.
And one time it was over 17 seconds.
I can remember.
I laid in bed one morning and counted 17 seconds. That's a long time.
All the way in the world on the man. You good, buddy? You good? Say something. Buddy, you awake?
The deputies soon realized that Chase was unresponsive.
He's unconscious right now. I'm trying to pull him out. Get him out. He ain't breathing. Hey, he's breathing. Hey.
Cases like the Shermans have raised questions about the safety and appropriate use of tasers.
You okay?
On this episode of Fault Lines, we examine the serious injuries and deaths that have been linked to police taser use, and how potential risks may have been obscured.
To be honest, I don't know. I haven't even been inside the ambulance, so I'm not sure what's going on with it.
Our investigation into taser-related injuries led us to Becky and David Null. An encounter with the police changed their lives forever.
We met on MySpace. We've literally been together ever since. He asked me to marry him like maybe 6 weeks later.
What was it about David?
His eyes. The first time I saw him, his eyes were just so intense, and I don't know. And he had such a big personality. I don't know, we just fell in love very quickly.
Becky says David was very outgoing and talkative. He was artistic and performed spoken word poetry.
When I first met him, he had made a few films of his poetry, and I mean, I used to love just listening to him. If I said, tell one of your poems like I could before, I don't think he could do it like that. Do you think you could? No. But if he heard one and he could talk along with it, and he would.
Does it seem like you just can't quite remember the poem, but when you hear it, it sounds familiar? And do you want to see? Do you have one?
Sure, yes, I definitely.
Let's show me.
Black on black, black on black, white on black, black on white. Ain't none of it right. 13-year-old black baby doing 20 to life. Why?
Do you recognize?
Remember
Remember him?
Open your eyes, ears, and hearts for your face.
David, are you still writing poetry? Do you still write poems? Do you still write? No?
One night in 2010, Becky and David had friends over to their old apartment in Painesville, Ohio. The police arrived and said someone reported a disturbance. Then, they claimed a woman leaving the apartment told them that David had acted threatening. Becky says the police came through the door, and the next thing she knew, one of the officers tased David in the chest.
He was on the ground and he was convulsing, and I've never in my life seen anybody be tased, you know, and I was totally freaking out. One of our guests at the time, she called 911 because she was so horrified by what was happening.
He went to the door and they just shocked him for no reason though, but we asked him why. We asked him? Yeah. With what? The police did, but we don't understand what's going on. The police shocked him? Yes, he just answered the door.
David was shocked twice for a total of 26 seconds. He became unresponsive.
They took a while to call an ambulance. Still, I don't know, I just still thought he would be okay, you know, but then I find out that he had been without oxygen for a long time.
Becky says the doctors told her David's heart had stopped, cutting off the oxygen to his brain, and he suffered severe brain damage.
We've been married 9 years, he's been like this 6. I hardly don't remember what he was like before. He's very sweet though. Thank God. Yeah. And then there's our wedding.
Wow.
He'll never come home and surprise me with flowers or, you know, every day is the same. The best way to describe our relationship, I feel like more of a mother to him because he's very childlike. He's very loving, you know, but this isn't what I wanted.
Officer Soto, who tased David Null, thought that David Null could respond when he's pulling the trigger, having tased David Null in the chest. David Null is curled up in a fetal position, foaming at the mouth, under power, and Officer Soto's saying, "Stop resisting, stop resisting." I mean, that whole scene is wrong.
Have you ever been tased?
In the course during my work, yes, I have, sir.
Tell me about that.
The instance with Mr. Null, during that time I was tased, I got caught up in the wires.
What'd that feel like?
Pretty bad.
Well, did it hurt?
Oh, yeah.
And did you lose any muscle control?
Oh, yeah.
One prong is going to go exactly where the red dot is, and an officer has to learn where the two prongs are going to land. I don't advocate that we eliminate tasers. I actually think if we can train people properly and research them carefully, they can be a valuable asset to the law enforcement arsenal. But there are many communities that will not spend the money to train people properly, and that's when we find instances of excessive force.
Taser International has sold these weapons for 2 decades, but it wasn't until 2009 that it started warning against shots to the chest.
Understand that when you look at an X-26, it looks just like a gun, and it's intended to handle like a gun. Officers have been trained for decades to shoot for center mass when they shoot their regular gun. Taser comes along as a less lethal weapon, and in September of 2009 said, oh yeah, by the way, a lot of people are suing us over the fact that when you shoot for center mass and the prong goes close to the heart, there could be cardiac problems. It's a very, 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 very low risk, but just to get rid of the lawsuits and to get these lawyers off your back, lower the target zone.
When you were recertified, did there come a time when the target areas changed at all?
This time around, sir, when I just recently got recertified, I believe they wanted you to aim now to the lower torso area, lower area here.
And you say lower area here.
Abdomen and body, thigh area.
Okay.
Not the upper chest, avoid the upper chest.
Okay.
Officer Soto said that when he tased David Null, he was not aware of the chest shot warnings. And he thought the taser would automatically stop discharging after 5 seconds. He was not disciplined and still works for the Painesville Police Department. The city settled an excessive force lawsuit brought by the Nulls.
In your mind, the David that used to exist, what happened to him?
Yeah, he's gone. They just, like everything, they just zapped it out of him. He's just gone. Like, I mean, yeah, everything I loved about him, everything I didn't like about him, is gone.
A few hundred miles away, in North College Hill, Ohio, a man named Corey McGinnis was also shocked in the chest by police.
There's Corey. It was 7 of us. Corey was our baby brother. Yes.
And you're his niece?
I'm his niece.
Niece.
And we were more like brother and sister.
They were best friends?
Yeah, that was my best friend. Okay. He was my protector. Corey had a smile that could light up a room. Corey and I were the glue that held our family together.
He'd been playing basketball at a local park in 2012 when a group of men allegedly started a fight. Someone heard the sound of gunshots and called the police. An officer at the scene said he told Corey McGinnis to get on the ground, but he remained standing with his hands balled into fists. The officer perceived McGinnis as a threat and fired his taser.
When I got there, it was a mess. The street was blocked off. There was crime scene tape, and all I could think was the worst.
We thought he had been shot, but actually he had been tased.
Physicians raised concerns about shocks to the chest years before Taser International changed its warnings.
And this simply shows those darts in one of the individuals who had cardiac arrest and died.
Dr. Zipes is a cardiologist and a professor who's given lectures on the impacts of taser shocks.
So here is a pig. This is a normal beat of the pig. And now this is taser capturing the heart, producing a very rapid beat. It stops, and the beat returns to normal. Now they do it again the second time, but now when they stop tasing, it has ventricular fibrillation. This is VF. This is death. If this is not reversed, you're dead.
Dr. Zipes says there's clear evidence that tasers have captured the heart rhythm, not just in animals, but also in humans.
This is the autopsy drawing from Corey McGinnis.
He's been a paid expert for plaintiffs in taser-related death cases, including the McGinnis case.
Well, these are the marks of the 2 taser probes, the burns produced by the taser probe. And as you can see, one is virtually directly over the heart, the other is in the upper abdomen, and there's no question that this vector, that is the electricity traveling between these 2 probes, is sufficient to capture the heartbeat, speed it up, make it go into ventricular fibrillation, and cause cardiac arrest and sudden death. So again, from my standpoint, to a reasonable degree of medical probability or medical certainty, this is a taser-induced cardiac arrest and subsequent death.
That was my baby.
The McGinnises filed a civil rights and wrongful death lawsuit against the city of North College Hill, It was settled in 2014.
No family should have to endure this, ever, ever. That's why we're fighting for a taser reform right now, so this won't happen to nobody else.
Not long after Corey McGinnis died in 2012, attorney Al Gerhardstein and his staff released a report on police taser policies in Hamilton County, Ohio. Here's some of the things that jumped out at me. 94% of agencies' materials do not adequately warn that tasers can capture the heart rhythm, which is the most serious thing that it can do.
Right.
94%. 67% permit chest shots.
Right.
27% do not restrict taser use on vulnerable populations, juveniles, elderly, visibly pregnant women.
Yeah. And we have had taser deployments against kids, you know, and the argument becomes, well, I didn't think you was that young. You know, I mean, really, this is the problem when you hand a sophisticated weapon to a small department or even some big departments, and they don't choose to train people correctly and guide them correctly.
Officer Schran had deployed his taser at least 3 other times before McGinnis. He hit 2 people in the chest and 1 in the head. In a deposition, he said he didn't intentionally aim at Corey McGinnis's chest, and he didn't know if the taser caused his death.
When you have gone through the X-26 training, what did you learn about how a taser might cause a person's heart to stop beating?
From what I learned,
Yeah.
that there was little to very low risk of that happening, and even then they hadn't contributed 1 taser death, or actually 1 death, to the taser itself of causing that.
In 2015, Officer Schran was promoted to chief of the North College Hill Police Department. We wanted to speak with him, but he said he wasn't available and instead referred us to the department's taser instructor.
Yes, and it's really an on-off switch. You can turn it on and you can see there's the laser and there's a light, and that laser shows where that dart's going to hit. And I've tested it on various tasers, and it seems to be fairly accurate.
You're milliseconds making a decision, your body goes here, not here, unless you practice this a lot. But cops practice this 500 times a year and this twice.
You're right, you're right. So it takes a lot of effort on their part.
Has there been a change in perception in the way officers deal with tasers since the 2009 warning from Taser International?
Well, we certainly don't use the non-preferred targeting area.
Sure.
And we try to use that.
Although that happens more often than not in the cases we've seen, that it does.
I wouldn't say it happens more often than not.
Well, in the cases we've seen, it's 4 for 4.
Well, that's in one officer in one instance. But I mean, if we look at all of them.
Not just any officer, he's the chief.
Well, he is now, but he wasn't when he was deploying that.
Okay.
And again, we're talking about 4 separate incidents. It's not like I'm going to shoot him there, even though that's not where I'm supposed to shoot. One of the typical things that happens is we aim in that low spot and people duck. And, you know, big shock that I don't get you in the belly where I wanted to, I get you now in the upper torso or chest area. I mean, that happens.
Taser International materials say that when used properly, the devices are safe and effective and have saved thousands of lives.
You promised that you wouldn't kill me.
But they do warn against excessive use. A mentally ill Virginia woman named Natasha McKenna died after officers at the Fairfax County Jail attempted to transport her to another facility.
Man, stop resisting.
She's in the restraint chair. Her hands are handcuffed behind her back. She had the spit hood over her head. She was no danger to anybody. Why they had to taser her all those times, you know, no one will ever justify to me.
Taser once here. Twice in the leg, and then twice in the elbow. So 3 or 4? 4.
What are they using the taser for here?
Well, pure torture. The only time you're supposed to use a taser is to protect you or others. And there was no need to protect anybody.
Miss McKenna, how you doing? How you doing?
Natasha McKenna was not responding, and her body appeared to go limp. The deputies continued to move her, but soon discovered she didn't have a pulse. Her death was ruled an accident caused by a condition known as excited delirium. Her official autopsy also cited physical restraint, including the use of a taser. The county prosecutor's investigation of McKenna's death said the deputies did their best under very difficult circumstances, and no charges were filed.
She hadn't used a weapon, she hadn't tried to escape, she didn't attack them.
Clear of patient.
Don't touch it.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
Excited delirium is a controversial diagnosis. It has been characterized by heightened anxiety, agitation, superhuman strength, and psychotic behavior, sometimes associated with drug use or mental illness. And it has been cited as a cause of death in many police custody cases, some involving tasers. Over the years, Taser International has distributed information about excited delirium to medical examiners and police agencies.
Once a death is associated with excited delirium, a medical condition of the arrestee or of the prisoner, that becomes the end of the story and the end of the inquiry, more importantly.
We wanted to ask representatives from Taser International about the company's interest in excited delirium. They denied our requests for on-camera interviews, but we reached the company's spokesman, Steve Tuttle, by phone.
This is Steve. May I help you?
Hi, Steve. This is Josh Rushing. I'm with a show called Fault Lines on Al Jazeera. I think we've reached out a couple of times about an interview. Do you have time to answer a couple questions right now?
Well, I'm driving. Let's see what we can do for right now.
Let's talk about excited delirium. Do tasers cause excited delirium?
Nope, not at all.
They definitely don't.
Excited delirium is a flat-out syndrome that has a myriad of symptoms. The taser does not cause it. Never has. The excited delirium terminology has been around longer than we've been a company that's been in business.
Why does it seem like Taser International is an expert on excited delirium then?
Because so many deaths have involved that actual syndrome.
Mm-hmm. But did Taser International personnel go to a medical examiner's conference and pass out literature about excited delirium?
No, we had a booth there, and we had medical information there. Absolutely.
And you had information about
on
excited delirium there?
Years ago, absolutely, because no one knew what this thing was in terms of how the taser worked and what excited delirium was.
I would assume a medical examiner who got documentation from Taser International would take it and throw it in the trash, because what role does Taser International have in making a medical determination as to a cause of death? So, of course, it raises all kinds of problems. Extremely heavy-handed effort on behalf of a private company to move attention away from the potential misuse of its weapon.
Do you believe that tasers ever caused a death? And I don't mean by a fall, I mean that the shock.
We haven't seen a classic case of what is known as electrocution, no.
Well, what about a captured heart rhythm that leads to?
That one, I couldn't tell you that one because I'm driving and I have to look at my report to see if we've seen any of those. I don't know off the top of my head on that.
Steve Tuttle asked that we send him an email so he could look into our question about taser-related deaths. We did send questions in writing, but never received a response. It's been nearly a year since Chase Sherman died on the side of a highway in Georgia. It's believed he was shocked with tasers at least a dozen times. The local sheriff's office has defended the actions of its deputies that night.
He was fighting with us, kicking us, grabbing our tasers. All we did is hold him and tase him.
Why did they not ask for his name or try to de-escalate it? What gave you the idea that he was a criminal?
Fired, man.
The Shermans are still demanding accountability in their son's case, and they've asked the Department of Justice to investigate.
Man was when he was still fighting with us.
I called 911 to help him not to kill him. Last thing I said to him was, Chase 911 is here and they're gonna help you, and they killed him.
It was just unbelievable.